الغوث الغوث خلصنا من النار يا غوث الغوث خلصنا من النار يا رب.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. We were looking at this section 4 of Dua Jawshan Al-Kabir, where the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were starting with Ya man lahu al-izzatu wal-jamal, Ya man lahu qudratu wal-kamal, Ya man lahu al-mulku wal-jalal. But now we'll see that the words slightly change in this section. Now it doesn't start with Ya man lahu, oh the one who possesses or the one who has. In fact, now the words change and says Ya man huwa, oh the one who is. So from now on you'll see that the wordings are slightly changing. So let's look at what we have today. Ya man huwa al-Kabirul Muta'al. Let's look at these two words together. Together they are constituting one way of understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya man huwa al-Kabirul Muta'al. Kabir, Muta'al. If we look at just the simple translations of Kabir and Muta'al, what would they be? Kabir would be big, and Muta'al is one of the variants of Ali or high. So Muta'al would be elevated. So the two meanings that come out of this, simple meanings, are big and elevated. But we cannot apply these meanings or these understandings to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because as Muslims and as believers in Tawheed, we believe in a God who does not have a physical size. So I cannot say big as in the opposite of small. And I cannot have that understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because I believe God to be beyond any physical size. Nor can I think of God as elevated because again that's a physical position, an elevated position as opposed to a low position. So none of these meanings that come out of the language of Kabir and Muta'al can be applied to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you will see that when you have translations of these words, Ya man huwa al-Kabirul Muta'al, the translations of Kabir are great, not big. And Muta'al is exalted and not elevated. So exalted, someone who is exalted, someone who is high, but not as the opposition of or as the opposite of low. Let's take a moment to understand Ya Kabirul Muta'al. I will present to you inshallah today very quickly two understandings. One is a mystical understanding or an irfani understanding. And I'm going to take this from Adab al-Salah, where Sayyid Khomeini talks about this, and he talks about it in the context of the takbir that we say in Salah, in namaz, and that is Allahu Akbar. And this Kabir, Akbar, Allah the Great. So one understanding will be a mystical, which I will share with you bidhnillahi ta'ala, and the other will be a practical understanding of Kabirul Muta'al, which is more like a tarbiyati understanding or a practical pedagogical understanding of the word. What is the mystical understanding? So in Adab al-Salah, he says that when we are saying in our Salah, Allahu Akbar, we are telling ourselves that Allah is great, He is much greater than the name great. When I say Akbar, that Kabir or Akbar, that word has a greatness, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater than that word great. Then he goes on and he says, Allah is even greater than any meaning that I can get into my head of what is great. So when I think of the word great, there might be some meanings that come into my head. And the author, Sayyid Khomeini of Adab al-Salah, he tells us that Allah is greater than any meaning that I can imagine of the word great. So He's greater than the word great. He's greater than any of the meanings that I can imagine of the word great. And then He says He is greater than anything I can look physically or in the seen world and unseen world and think that this is great. He's greater than that too. Meaning what? If I look at a mountain, I say, oh my God, what a great mountain. So this is something seen. And then Allah is greater than anything that I see great in my life. Or say, for example, not a physical thing, but someone like a great human being. So and so was a great human being. So even if I think of a characteristic of someone as great, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater than that. Or if I see a sifat, this is a great act. This is a great act of charity, or this is a great act of patience. I might see something like that in my world and I might say, this is a great act of charity or a great act of sacrifice. Allah is greater than that as well. Now remember, these are all mystical, irfani understandings of Allahu Akbar. What is the mahasal? What is the end result of this mystical understanding? Khomeini says in Adab al-Salah that the natija or the derivation of this understanding is that every time I say Allahu Akbar, I am reminding myself of my ajiz, of my impossibility of ever understanding the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And my life is a journey of trying to come to terms with the fact that I have such a great Lord that I will never understand the greatness of this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is Kabir al-Muta'al. So this is the mystical understanding of Kabir al-Muta'al, the irfani understanding. To give myself, to make myself Dhalil, saying that I will never understand how great my Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. And then a more practical or a tarbiyati understanding of Kabir al-Muta'al comes to us again when we are reminded to ask ourselves these questions by Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. And what is the question? The question is, how great is Allah in my life? If I say Allahu Akbar, how great, how kabir, how muta'al is Allah in my life? Have I given the great and exalted position to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in my life? That is the question. And with this question comes that saying of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, where he says, إِذَا كَبُرَ الْخَالِقِ, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes kabir or great in my life, صَغُرَ مَا دُونَهُ, everything else in my life becomes small in comparison. And maybe that's the practical or the tarbiyati aspect of Ya man huwa Kabirul Muta'al. If Allah is Kabir and Muta'al in my life, then everything else is Saghir, is small. My needs are small. My worries and my troubles are small compared to the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The threats of people, the fear from others that I have is small. All those fears are small. All those threats are small. All those temptations that shaitan gives me, all those temptations that my friends give me, all the temptations that the people of power give me in this world, they are all small compared to Ya man huwa Kabirul Muta'al. And if I'm able to focus and give Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the Kabir and Muta'al position in my life, I will be able to overcome all these fears and all these temptations. I will stay away from sin because the Kabir and Muta'al is watching me. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to develop both the irfani and the tarbiyati aspect of Kabirul Muta'al in our life, which will give us a courage and a confidence to face all the ups and downs that life may throw at us. May Allah accept from us in these days, and inshallah I will see you again tomorrow with the next name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
سبحانك يا لا إله إلا أنت الغوث الغوث خلصنا من النار يا رب.